Women, an organization that empowers women in Laos. More recently, she has co-founded Transforming Generations, Building Our Future, and the social enterprise Red Green Rivers to help support young women and girls to create traditional handcrafts as marketed across the globe. So welcome, Bing. Also, our next guest is Tian-Ning Wing. He was born in the mountains of region of central Laos, but his family was constantly moving due to the war. He was about 5 when his family abandoned the village without him to avoid the invasion of the communist soldiers. They were reunited several weeks later. Tian-Ning was not even 10 when he swam across the Mekong with his family to escape the communists around 1978. He lived in the refugee camps of Nong Khai and An Vinai in Thailand before coming to the US in 1980. The first time he returned to Laos, he had a profound emotional experience when he got to the Mekong River. It was as though the river spoke to him, saying, "This is the place you ran away from. You shouldn't be here." Tian-Ning realized how easily he and his family might have died that night 25 years earlier. Aside from his volunteer role with the Hmong Archives, other Hmong-centric and community efforts domestically and abroad, Tian-Ning is employed as a Hmong culture and language specialist at Chief Language Academy, a Hmong charter school that has focused on teaching Hmong and Spanish since 1996. He now currently lives in Minnesota with his family, so please welcome Tian-Ning. And then next we have a CSB student, Benny. She's a junior. Kalea Bang. She's a political science major and Asian studies minor, so please welcome her. We also have a senior, Johnny Yupeng Lee. He is a senior and he's Asian studies major. So please welcome him. Now I'd like to have Joe Rogers come up to lead the discussion.
Thank you, Brianna. As some of you may know, I think I know most of you. I'm the director of the Center for Global Education, and when Brianna approached me with the opportunity to be part of this, I jumped at it. I think the opportunity to watch a powerful documentary like we just saw, and then a chance to dialogue and talk with some of the stars of the video, to learn more about their experience, and to help spread the word on this campus, and more broadly than that, about the story of the Hmong people, I think was what I really wanted to be part of. So thank you, Brianna, for including me. I'd like this next section to be a real dialogue and conversation. So I'm just going to kick it off with a question, but we're going to open it up to anyone to ask questions. So please, when time permits, please raise your hand and we'll call on you and have a chance to hear your questions and hear some answers from the panel too. So maybe to start off, I'd just like to ask our panelists, this film was made roughly 10 years ago. What's it like looking back? What's it like to watch that film and to have those memories and those images, those powerful experiences brought back right in front of you on the video? And you know, what sticks with you when you watch that?
I guess I could speak on it first. So, in regards to this movie, I've never seen this movie. This is my first time seeing it. And I kind of wish that I saw it a little sooner. As I was watching it, and I saw the family there, it hit me. Like, I was like, for some reason, I know this family that I've seen them before. And then it turns out that this family, a really close friend of mine, one of their sons, his name is Ching. That's actually his family that he recorded, and I went to the same elementary school with him. He was in the same class with me. And I never realized that, that was him. And just kind of looking back at now and not seeing this film, I wish I saw it earlier. It definitely was really emotional. It made me understand him a lot better. I wish I was more active in his life because growing up, I saw the route he took and kind of wish I could have prevented it, kind of influenced him in a way better way than I did now.
Kain, you want to comment on your impressions of seeing the film?
Oh, that was very complicated.
Yeah.
I think that this is why the film is still relevant, because I think our people have gone through a lot of trauma, and we often talk about PTSD of our parents, but studies have shown that PTSD transfers through many generations, right? And we often think that it's only our parents that suffer, but we suffer along with them because we witness their suffering and their losses. And you have witnessed your friends' losses, right? So we are traumatized continuously, right? It's perpetrated in our community, and that's what happens to refugees. And so we have to be sympathetic to refugees all over the world, and be their allies, right? And that's what you are. If you're not a refugee person yourself, then you should be an ally. I understand this. If you're a Hmong person, know that although this film was made 10 years ago, it's still very relevant today. I'm still wearing the same jacket that I wore to see them, right? And I still have the same white shirt that I wear in there, because for me, those things represent symbols of the different stages of my life. Not so I just don't like to shop, right? But all those things, I think, when I see my father keeping records or plane tickets from Thailand, from Laos, from Bangkok to the US, it's because they're trying to keep a part of their history alive, right? And our parents, our elders never talk about these stories to us. That's why these documentaries are so important. This documentary is also very important because the people that were interviewed in here are slowly getting older and they will die soon, right? And so when Brianna invited us, I said that because so many of them live in Minnesota, we should take advantage of them and we bring them here. The man in the white shirt who says that not only the past is dying, but the future is dying, he's also very ill right now, and he has cancer, and stage 4 cancer. And I wanted him to see this film with you so that he can see how much you appreciate his story, right? And then General Rang Pao, as you know, he passed on too. And that interview is one of the last interviews with him. And, we always see him as a military leader, always, resisting and wanting to go back to Laos. But in this interview was the first time I saw him cry. And it touched me because deep down it's because he also loved the country that he was fighting for. And so in the film also is Brianna's grandfather, one of the soldiers that was marching. So all of our lives are connected to these people, right? And this film, when you think it's just a film of somebody else, you're connected to it, And so that's why it's so important. And I wanted you guys to see this film because I've been living overseas for 10 years. And when I came back, I just felt like nobody had seen this film because nobody was promoting it. And the other thing is that this film is different from other documentaries because we are in it. Usually the documentaries only talk to elders and the men, right? They don't talk to the younger generation. We are the younger generation. We're the ones that our parents carried to this country. We grew up in this country. Our story is also relevant, right? So all of that is important. And I don't think that this film will always be timeless for me, not only because I'm in it, but because so many of the other stories touched my life and they were a part of my life. And everything was parallel to me. When he talked about him crossing the river, I also crossed the river. We are about the same age. And so it's our destiny, right, to be together here, to be colleagues, So for me, this film is, is so important and powerful. And the fact that you are a stranger to me and you have a connection to them means that you and I are connected, So that's why it's so important.
Jinny?
Well, thank you for the opportunity. It's a new phase, a new time for me. It's still pretty fresh. So physically, obviously I haven't changed, I guess because I didn't change much anymore. So besides losing weight, time stands still for me. Everything's still really fresh. So yeah, it hasn't changed. Watching, still just today or yesterday, and it took a little while to complete that documentary too. So it's just, I guess, natural as flow with our time, the memory and the struggle that we went through. So it's still pretty fresh. Thank you for asking.
Yep. Kalia, what was it like for you to watch the video?
I think talk about it, but then it's just, it's the same words and the same experience that they said. And to see this documentary, it made it more visual. It made me like realize the sacrifices that my parents took, and a lot of our parents and grandparents took. And it's something that I think people get grateful for. And it's something that I think we need to build on our generation and next generation.
Now I'd like to ask the audience if anyone would like to ask a question of the panelists. Anything that was brought up in the video or anything you want to know more about? Or yeah.
I think it was earlier in the video where they mentioned about, I could get correct, but then it was talking about how parents don't talk much about the war or what they're actually to the kids. And so for me, my parents, they don't talk about it at all. Now they do tell folklore of stories that have been passed down, but in their experience, and you know, for them, so I wonder how come. I mean, I guess I should have asked my parents how come they don't tell me this stuff, right? But then what do you please, or do you think, how come they tell us this experience, this journey that they have ran through, this motivation to push us newly emerging Hmong American, you know. So what do you think?
Did everyone in the back, were you able to hear the question? So what the question was basically, why don't the generations who experience that, the war and the experience of being a refugee, why don't they talk about it more? What is it that holds them back?
I think one is that nobody asked them, and for them, they just need a place to start. But the more common that I have known most of my life is that it's just part of their life now, and that maybe nobody tell them that it's special or that it's unique in its own way. So it's partly you need to do that to trigger that, story. So for them, it's part of their life. If you don't ask, they don't tell. So that's just my opinion. It could be different for somebody else, but it's basically when I do archival oral history, when we talk, they say, but isn't that your story too? So if I tell that to you, it's not interested. You may not be interested. And the other would be nobody asks us. So we just think that nobody is interested in our story. So just start asking questions.
I think a lot of it is very painful, right? I mean, I know that when I watch this movie, my body, everything about, the pain comes back to me. And I'm also scared to ask my parents because I think it will trigger a lot of emotion. So I don't want to see that. Even though I'm curious and I want to know about their experiences, it's hard for me to ask them because I can see the pain in their faces and I understand the losses. And also, you are a witness to their life. You see how they struggle already, financially or socially. So to bring back old memories of war, destruction, death, and losses of family and lives, I think it's hard and it's scary to talk about it. But I agree with Jinning. I think people want to talk about it. It's just how do we talk about it in a way that we can also support their pain, right? And I think maybe now to a third reason is because maybe there's a language barrier, right? They feel that when they talk about this, you don't understand it because all of you, are having a harder time understanding Hmong too, right? So I think it's a combination of everything. But as I was watching this, I feel very privileged to come back and live in Minnesota because you have so many opportunities to show these kinds of film and to have these kinds of dialogue. I mean, I learned that here in Minnesota on May 14th is Hmong Day, right? And as you can see here, May 14th is a very important day for the general. He was evacuated on that day. So I think that in the future we should think about having a broader dialogue where the film is shown in our community where people can have access to it, and then that we can visit our elders, and talk to each other, and we just be like the audience, listening in on that. So I think it's a variety of reasons, but I think we should ask those questions more.
Another question? Yeah.
Where can we get this documentary or also share with the family?
Well, I think you guys have contacted the filmmaker, and she has a website and she sells them, so it's not expensive, it's like $25 or something. And the right to show it and publicly is not expensive either, so she wants to make it very accessible to all of you. And Brianna can share that with you.
I have a question, and that's, in the earlier part of the film, when one of the families was getting ready to relocate from Thailand to the United States, it was clear that the father of the family had passed away in Thailand and he was buried there, and the family was saying goodbye to him and asking forgiveness to leave him in a way and to start a new life somewhere else. To me, that really spoke to the connection that the Hmong feel not only to their land and to their family, but to their husbands and wives, parents, grandparents. Not only the place where they're buried, where their bones are, but where their spirit is too. Can any of you comment on that aspect of Hmong culture? And it seemed like a very powerful experience for those individuals.
Yeah, I can comment a little bit. I mean, in regards to the refugee camp, I actually was fortunate to visit it when I was in about third grade. This is like 2 years right before the refugee camp was shut down, or it was closed, and the second wave came. But I actually got to stay there for a little over a month and a half, and so when I saw the film, a lot of the scenes were very memorable. And then the second time I did get to go visit again. This was my junior year in high school, where I actually got to visit the same camp, but this time it was shut down. So it looked a lot more scarier. There wasn't a lot of people living there. And then more so the leftovers moved into a different camp, which is, I don't like, the only term I know it was called K-May, which is like a smaller village, and then the other one was like Whitewater, and I was fortunate to visit the two. And then in regards to like my parents' refugee camp, I think they were from, I forgot what camp my parents were, but we were able to visit it in Laos, and we were also able to visit the Longcheng, which is the actual site. I was very surprised when my dad and me said that they were surprised that the field that the planes would take off was still very clear, and that then when we visited my mom's old town, they were asked not to cry. When we saw my parents' ball, I could just see like my mom's sadness and same with my dad's, and so it definitely felt very sad to see my parents go through that phase. Where when I went there, I was like, oh, this is a vacation for them. It was really a journey.
Well, the Hmong are animists, and Tina can talk more about that, but as you know, animists, we believe that every being or every object has a spirit and soul. And so, like she said, if in your body you have like 32 spirits, and if one, falls out or is missing, then you become ill or depressed. And so we have that very strong connection to the spirit. Even if a person is dead, we don't think of them as being dead, but the spirit is returned to the homeland and is reincarnated. But we also believe that if you don't treat the ancestors well, then curses will come to you, those that are living, right? So I think that for these reasons, Hmong people are very connected to the past, and they respect the past a lot because the past determines what the future is like, right, spiritually. And spiritual health and collective well-being of the community is very important. So it's not enough to just, buy a plane ticket and leave, but to also ensure that your spirit comes with you. This last couple of days, I'm an American. I grew up in this country. I understand what Christianity is. I understand that, I don't know that there's a heaven, but I know that people talk about a heaven. I'm also a non-practicing animist because that's what my family believes. But because I travel a lot and I sleep in a lot of hotels, in the last 10 years, I have learned to, when I leave a hotel, I ask my spirit to come with me. because I feel like I'm traveling so much and sleeping one night here, one night there, that my spirit may still stay in that comfortable hotel room. So even in whisper or in silence, I say, you know, I say this because I don't want my spirit to be in that hotel room while I'm coming here to St. Paul, because I do believe that then I will not be whole if my spirit is there. So I think that this kind of strong connection is something that we haven't been able to describe and explain to our friends in America. And for this reason, it's been hard for us to understand fully the medical system, but also as a woman to understand why women choose harmful relationships and they cannot leave because they feel like their spiritual being is being protected by that clan and that husband who may be abusive to them. And without that affiliation, then they become homeless. Basically their spirit becomes homeless in the community. So for all these reasons, I think domestic advocates don't know how to work with women who are in domestically abused world. People who are very ill, the doctors don't understand why we need to also have a shaman healing in addition to our chemotherapy or medication that they give it to us, because we believe in both of those worlds. And so yes, it is powerful that the parents, when they left the refugee camp, that they felt like they were leaving their father and they didn't want to have that separation.
Well, I mean, you mentioned something, but I just want to comment on one thing just for, I guess, practical purposes. That what Tagalog is not officially a refugee camp, is a treatment center. So the last formally recognized refugee camp, of course, was 92, and that was Monday night. So the Tagalog is, although hosts a lot of the residents from the former Bangladesh refugee camp, that is not, refugee camp. But speaking to that, I think what Dana already said, animus, a lot of people went about what Hmong said, our religion or our faith-based practices or practice is shamanism or shamanistic based, but it's actually animus. So basically what animus is that anything that you give it a name, that's why Hmong people, anything that you have, you give it a name, whether it's a cat and your daughter, so like the more common way is that the returning policy is 3 days. So that's why you wait. When we marry, you wait 3 days to see if your daughter-in-law is willing to stay. If she doesn't go back within that 3 days, then we do that spiritual cleansing and that soul calling, and she become one of the family. And so with the newborn, we give them physically and spiritually 3 days to be with that family, and if that is in fact the family that you want to make company, then we do the official ceremony. So yeah, anything that without a name, it's become what we name a name. But if once you give it a name, it becomes something, and then it has a spirit. So, and for that family, because the father was the one, the guru that sort of not so much time by holding them back, for them to violate his value and come and resettle in America for the daughter, that's something that she didn't want to have to think about. So that's why she was so traumatized by the fact that they are leaving.
Yeah, and also to kind of add on that, a lot of old James, they believe that when they die, their spirit will go back to their hometown, where their ancestors came from. My parents are from the northern part of Laos, the province of Phokan, and my dad's from a small village called Kupati. And Kupati was actually a very important place during Vietnam, strategically, because on top of that big mountain in Kupati, there's Lima Site 85. It was a very secretive communication place where the CIA placed intelligence airmen there. And my dad defended that area because my dad was in the war. And the fall of Kupati, my dad actually fought on that night. And my dad was actually really hurt. He was injured, and so they flew him back to go and change him. So, that's where, the fall of Kupati happened. And they don't teach that in history books because, unfortunately they don't. And I think this is something that we really need to know. but because of that, my dad is no longer around anymore. But, you know, when he was sick, he always said, you know, I'm going back to Pupati and I'm ready, you know? And, you know, a lot of veterans, Hmong veterans, you know, they have this dying hope to go back to Laos, go back to their village where they were born. And, you know, fortunately, before my dad passed, he was able to travel back to Laos, but then he, I guess, according to my other relatives, he had he had enemies in Laos. So when he went to Laos, he stayed there a few days and he wanted to visit Pupati. And when he got to the gate, law official arrested my father actually. And so he was put into a jail cell for a week. And then that was when we got word back that he was arrested. And I was in elementary. I didn't know much, but then he stayed in the jail cell for a week, and then he was let go. And according to my mom, my dad was beat up pretty bad when he was in that jail cell. And even as an American citizen, when that happened, I don't really remember if the U.S. said anything, but you know, just being a man, a hardball, you know, general gang power era man, you know, they have that resentment towards you, and a lot of, you know, older generations, like, you know, our father, grandfathers, generation, they also they pick up and they choose, you know, memories to hold on to, and you know, I think with that, this is kind of changing the subject, but you know, with that, we can't really like understand our parents or our grandparents because we didn't live that and we didn't experience it. But I think, you know, it's nice that we have dialogues now to kind of talk about it. And like Paige said, you know, a lot of them are dying, a lot of them are getting old, you know. And I think one thing they don't really want to talk about it is also because of shame. Because, you know, it was their country and they lost. And so they ran away. You know, us Hmong people, especially our grandparents or parents' generation, you know, you either fight or flight. They fought, they lost, they didn't stay, so they left. And I think it's shame and it's resentment, or I guess you could say historical memory in a way.
Another question? Yeah.
Okay, so recently, I think it was this year, when, of course, again, I talked to my parents a lot too, and of course they're always on YouTube looking at Hmong news or whatnot, and they did come across a interview with a lawyer stating about like a lawsuit against Laos. So I was wondering how do you guys feel, or if you know about it?
No, I'm not aware of it.
That is Northern California group. They, I don't know official they are, but they, have you heard of the fact-finding group?
The what?
The fact-finding?
Finding group commission. They are just basically consists of a couple and then some other Hmong relative in the Oroville and Chico area in Northern California. And they're the one that have released a lot of the very graphic video, you know, showing who live in the jungles. You know, but as far as the case, just jurisdiction-wise, you know, that's impossible, right?
Yeah.
So, but I think part of it may have to do with the fact that the lawyer himself probably wanted to make a name for himself, and then so he came up with this idea, and anything that has to do with the Lao communists or getting overthrowing the Lao communists or getting some type of diversion going on in Laos. The elder Hmong, some even the younger Hmong my age, or even some your age, then they will hesitate to be part of it. So as to the extent of the permanent lawsuit that they're putting forth, personally, it's not going to go anywhere because the U.S. does not have any jurisdictions over what law does in Laos, nothing on the UN. So, and also, I think many of you heard about the Hmong country call, right? The call for membership to create a Hmong country. Okay, the downfall is that they don't call it Hmong country, but they say to create our country in Laos. So basically, they're helping the Lao country to become a better Lao country, basically. So it's just another way of getting their names and misuse or misguide the community. So if you have any relative who thinking toward that way, perhaps ask them to cross-check their facts. But for me personally, I know a little of it, but I knew of it because, again, the Hmong community is very small, so those people that I know are also a relative of mine, and we're very close too, so they have shared with me, and I know about it, but I'm not condoning that sort of thing. So yeah, there is such a champion for legal action.
Like, I have another one too, like, how, I mean, we are the new generation, and, I mean, we could probably answer this by ourselves too, but how can we push and make sure the next generation still keeps, the history, the culture, the language, because we are a dying language, really, culture.
Would you like to repeat that question, President?
I'm not quite sure if I heard, I just, how can,
She asked if, how can this generation and next generation keep the culture alive and the language alive, because it is a dying language, right? Because it is an oral tradition, and although we have a writing system, I think it's not everybody knows it and use it. So how do we keep our culture and language alive?
Yeah, one thing is education. Many of you may be too young, but back in 2002, Assemblywoman Reyes in Fresno worked with a bunch of Hmong educators, and they wanted to propose to teach Hmong history into the whole high school, public education, basically, mostly high school in California. But at the end, is us Hmong came together and said, no, we don't want that. And then that's why that bill got defeated. And then they did include that curriculum into the California high school, but it went in, rather than Hmong history, it went in as Southeast Asia. So again, Southeast Asia just talked about Vietnam, or the Vietnam War. So right now, currently, Senator from Her, you guys know about him, right? He has encouraged that it's time that we need to come together and put forth something like that. Because on the greater scale, that is one of the best way. On the smaller scales, just make sure that you yourself embrace your culture. If people make fun of it, make sure you find a more positive approach to respond to it. Myself personally, again, I don't impose my value and my belief on anybody, but I do what I can. This is going to be the 9th year that we'll be doing Hmong RPA or Hmong language spelling bee. So part of that is to basically to help how that came about. Basically was I have some Hmong Americans in my class and they couldn't enunciate any of the letter. So when I revised the spelling bee, used the spelling bee formula, then that's how they know how to be able to spell. And then at the end, enunciate the Hmong word very clearly. So just a little thing like that on the personal level, you should do what you can. But on the greater scale, I think somebody like Senator Fong you should work with, and hopefully before his term end, we'll be able to craft something, and at least for Minnesota high school education, at least that we're teaching the Hmong history. And if you do teach Hmong history, and by the fact that we are oral, language, we will have some oral history in there, and the oral history will include the language and the history piece too. So do what you can, but don't be afraid to show where you are. For this group, the best I guess you could do is to represent yourself. earlier we found out one of your colleagues, the name is Banda, but she said, sorry to pick on you, Banda.
It's okay.
But she said in English. So Ying's husband thought she has a Latino name, right? Padre, yeah, Padre. It's Banda. So if you can, if you have a Hmong name, for example, Galia, then try to say Galia and not Kalia, or Yiping rather than Yiping, okay? So I mean, just a little thing like that. That makes a whole lot different, because definitely you will not want to find Hmong kids come back and say, okay, I don't know what Galia is, but I know what Kalia is, you know, so how do you define Kalia in Hmong, right? You guys know what Galia is, right? In Hmong?
Yeah.
Okay, so, okay, would you share?
It's like a caterpillar.
Okay, Ga is insect, but Galia is
Like your.
dimple. Yeah, so Galia is a dimple. So, I mean, just a little thing like that. So, I mean, it doesn't, I mean, look like much, but little things like that. Start with yourself, and people, you know, that little ripple effect, you know, will go. Thank you.
I want to say that on campuses like this, because you have 2 faculty members here, that we need to encourage more dialogue like this, and we need to ask the faculties and staff to ensure that there are more resources come to you, so you can do more of this and do it regularly, right? Because it is at this time in your life that you start questioning your identity, right? When you're younger, you're overwhelmed with being a teenager and getting over high school. But by the time you get to college, people ask you enough, where are you from and who are you, that you start to seek out your history. So I think college-age students are the best ones to do it, because you have the mindset to already want to embrace your culture. So that's one area. What he's talking about is having curriculums in elementary school that reflect your culture. Now that discussion is a lot more complex, because you have African Americans, Latinos, and so forth, and we can't say that we're more important than our friends, right, who are people of color as well, and their history is very important to us, especially Black, history, right? So I think that debate would never end, but we should not make it a debate. We need to be allies to each other and work together, not only with Senator from her, but with other senators and congressmen and women, to ensure that all people of color's histories are represented in history class, in elementary school. What I'm very encouraged about in Minnesota, which has one of the largest populations of Hmong people, is that you have charter schools. You have school districts that have 70% Hmong people, right? As college students, you should go back to these schools and volunteer in those schools and to teach, and also to talk about what you learn, because not only will you be role models to them, but you will also teach them why it's so important for young kids to understand their culture, because by the time you get to college, it's too late. Right? That you don't really know the stuff, that you have to invite people like us. And, we normally don't think of ourselves as elders, but unfortunately we have so much history with us that we are now elders. And even I don't feel confident that I know everything about Hmong people, but I get invited to speak all over the place. And I'm happy to be the person, but really I need to learn more too, So I think that this is what you should do more of. I agree with Zining that we need to pronounce our names much more accurately. I'm so disappointed that we don't do that. I think you have good friends in the Vietnamese community, because they always say their name so correctly that you don't know how to repeat it after them, right? But there's something to be said about that, and so that is so hugely tied to your identity, and you have to really think about that. I also want to say that what is missing in Hmong culture and discussion is women, right? When you saw in this picture, it's mostly women and children who suffer, right? And at Watakarabok, the majority of the people were children. Do you see that? And if we didn't resettle them, that generation of people would have been lost forever, right? And they did lose for 30 years. And what we don't talk enough about is gender and power among the dynamics. I was just telling my friends that when I was working in Watakarabok, I don't know, even UNHCR, IOM, all these international agencies always determine that the husband is the head of household. But most Hmong men and other maybe refugee men don't want to come to this country or resettle. They want to stay. When they say they don't want to resettle, 10 of their kids and their wives, you know, their faith are set because of that one man's decision. When we say, well, then make the woman the head of household, then they say, well, they have to be divorced. And the man refuses to divorce the woman. So then, you know, the fate of the woman and the children is set because of that one man. And I think that this is unfair and it's injustice to the women and children. You don't know how many hearts were broken, how many young people are living in the mountains of Thailand because their father didn't want to come to this country for selfish reasons, you know. So I always say we need to tell the women's story too, and we don't do enough of that, right? Sorry, come on.
Oh, that's fine. We have time for one more question. Does somebody want to ask one? I feel like we could keep talking all night. Okay, maybe we'll do two more. Well, we start here and then we'll finish here. We'll start here. Okay.
In the video, and for the family, when you really come to, I remember being the first wave here in 2004, but.
Yeah, they came in 2004, I think around June. I escorted them here. They still live here in Minnesota. I haven't been in touch with them since I moved back, but I visited them over the years. And you saw that the husband, he was depressed, right? And you saw that he was not as happy as he was. And when I went to visit him, he was not working. He was really, depressed and unhappy about being here. So the resettlement didn't work out for everyone. Other people have also faced much more tragic, experiences of maybe violence or criminal activities where they join gangs or whatever and are in prison. But I think that when we decided to resettle, when the U.S. decided to resettle this group, and all of us advocated for it, I really was thinking about the children and the women because I think more than 50%, maybe 70 or 80% of the population were women and children. And if you didn't resettle that community, then like I said before, you would lose a generation of people. But I also, have heard that young people are doing very well, college students. I am on a Facebook group with a group of Hmong children who came to this country and grew up here. And there are like 400 of us on that Facebook group, and they often share pictures, and they want to see more pictures of this stuff. So I want to have a showing of this film with that community, and maybe all of you can help me figure out how to do that. Because after 10 years, I think that they also, it's very sad. Some of the people that I talk to, they say that the Hmong Americans who resettle ahead of time, she include so they feel like they're their own community. And I'm ashamed of all of you that right? We should have been their mentors, and we should have helped them. So I think this is a good opportunity to kind of reach out to them and to figure out how we can build those bridges. And they're actually very amazing. They can still speak Thai fluently, English, and Hmong very well. And they are the first generation to go to college, so they're very motivated. And I think that we have a lot to learn from them, so that we need to think about that. And maybe some of you are in the audience. I don't know.
I guess I can kind of speak a little bit on behalf of that. My family actually took in my dad's older brother's kid who lives in Watakabo, who they now live with us. And other than that, we also took in 3 other families with us. So growing up, I had a really small family, but during the 2004, now I've always had about 4 families under one house. And so I definitely got to embrace my culture and language there. That's when I picked up Hmong again. So growing up, I kind of abandoned it. I was like, I gotta stop to, I gotta hang out with my friends at school and whatnot. And then that's when they came in 2004, that's when I re-picked up the Hmong language, and that's when I really started to embrace my culture. And on behalf of the Hmong Thai and the Hmong American experience, where I think for both speaking on the Hmong American experience, I did feel that tension that many times there was that I didn't like you that because you're Hmong Thai and whatnot, but at the same time there was a lot of that, oh, I'm Hmong Thai and I feel that you think you're better than me, so I don't want to get along with you. And that definitely was really prevalent in my high school years, where this is where we're all kind of growing up a little bit, and that's why the friend of mine in that video, that's where our disconnect was, once we entered high school, we both went our separate ways, and then when we saw him again, but his environment changed where when we were in elementary, we were really good friends, and I kept motivating him to go to school, but because my parents didn't want me to stay at the Hmong school that the film was filmed in, I went to the public school, so I transferred out, and he stayed at that school. And then 4 years later, down the road, when I met him, he actually became a gang member, and it was really upsetting, but I talked with him, but it was really hard because that's where I was like, oh, I didn't choose that route, and I'm sorry I couldn't, like, because when we talked as friends, but when he turned his back around, he had his whole gang member where it was like, now I felt like he was a scary guy, where the guy I once knew wasn't like him.
Last question.
My question was, I think towards the end, Tianning went to an area where like a lot of the veterans were, and you were filming on. Do you know where the memorial place is specifically?
Yeah, that is Lake Michigan in Sheboygan. So they do that July 22nd every year. They do the memorial. So that's a memorial for SJU.
Special guerrilla unit.
Yeah. If you need direction, let me know. Yeah, the Minnesota is unveiling this May, the state capitol. Yeah, this one's good.
Well, I think we can all agree that the secret war, it's not secret anymore, it's well known, but none of us want to see it become the forgotten war. And so we really appreciate the panel sharing their perspectives with us tonight, so let's give them a round of applause. And as we work to try to get this story out so that more people understand the story of the Hmong, their migration here to Minnesota, to the United States, what precipitated that and what their experience has been like is an important story. It's part of their American fabric. It needs to be told. So I encourage everyone to stick around and to continue the dialogue and talk about ways they might get involved to help make that happen. So thank you all very much. And thank you, Brianna and Heis, for sponsoring this wonderful event.